Alrighty, so for this first assignment, which again, you've heard me say, is due on the first night of the semester, I just want to give you an overview because the content, the videos I've provided here are somewhat generic to um, any of my coding classes. So, but I wanted to speak directly to just where there may be some slight differences for this particular class. So for you all, you'll be coding through, or what I call coding up section 1 and 2. But in order to do that, you actually need to do some setup. Because in this course, in Andrew's course that I absolutely love, I've used it now for a couple of semesters, Andrew does not actually go over GitHub until later, right? So actually we don't hit GitHub in his course until we get to actually deploying to the here. And this is where he actually will talk a little about GitHub, and he will change the cloning type from what I show here to SSH. And so if you have experience with GitHub, I could say go ahead and clone now with SSH. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. You'll get there at that point. I prefer for more advanced students to clone as SSH. But again, that section when we get there is important. And it's okay if you haven't. So here's the deal, right? So you've already been invited in. You've watched these videos. Hopefully, again, this is your first one. I'm going to show you where there are differences. So making sure, and this is, I should say, this is not required. As a matter of fact, I have my editor up showing you how I've done it. So I create a base directory. And so for this course, for this semester, it'd be CIT94SP20. Okay, and then in there, I clone the 2 repos that we need. And so in here, he definitely walks through Node.js, but I talk about it too. Oh, and coming back up here, it's way, way important for this class to make sure you've included either, and this is what's called a recursive reference in your gitignore file. You can just do the standard one. I was playing around with this to see if it made a difference, and I can't remember seeing any difference. So you can just do this reference in your gitignore in addition to the settings that I show in here. But for this class, it's absolutely important because we start using Node modules from the very first, I think it's maybe the 3rd lecture in the doing the setup. And so for this class, of course, we're using a different course. The other thing is setup in your private repos, the name of the directory where you will place all the code for following along and coding along will be Node course. So I've changed this in the content itself. But when you hear me talking about it, you're going to hear me reference a different directory. See, this is the reference here. But in the videos, because I actually used my 93, which is my JavaScript class, as a base for showing this. And really important, if you have not ever installed GitHub on your system, which, by the way, I'll just say this. Actually, I think I'll hold that comment to my welcome video about if you don't have any experience at all with JS. But here's your flow, your GitHub workflow, important. And then I've shown you how to submit. But in this case, the first code you're going to write is actually very similar to the JS course. It's really, in this example, and then the other one is just to get your directory set up. Now, what I like about this course is that he does use the integrated terminal in VS Code. Again, I recommend VS Code unless you have an editor you really like. All right, I'm going to keep this short. This is, again, just a overview. I do say here at the end, if you have any issues setting up your local GitHub and pushing your local Git and then pushing that to GitHub, make sure you're coming to get help, because this is something from this point on that we will use for this class. You will use it for every assignment. So getting it set up correctly is important. Okay? All right. Have a good one, and I will talk to you later.